story to tell.
World War II saw the power of German armored forces. Their elite armored units swept across Europe and North Africa during the 6 years of war. There was a fact that the super heavy tanks like Tiger or Panther were not the factors that helped the Nazis defeat Europe, but the medium tanks like the Panzer III and Panzer IV. When attacking, their armored units were vigorously assaulted to quickly break through the defensive line and surround the enemy. That method of war is well known as the Blitzkrieg, a German term for Latin war. They achieved many impressive achievements, best known for their victories in defeating France in just 6 weeks and advancing to Soviet capital Moscow for 5 months. German troops were famous for well-trained tank crews. Their tank designs were very famous because of the power it created on the battlefield. The achievements of German armored forces have contributed to changing the modern world. It can be said that the Panzer IV was one of the most important tanks of Nazi Germany in World War II. It has the full name Panzerkampfwagen IV, ordnance designation Sd.Kfz 16. Designed by German engineers as a medium tank, the Panzer IV was the most numerous German tank and the second most numerous German armored fighting vehicle of the Second World War, with some 8,500 built. It became the backbone of the German Army's Panzer divisions. It was present on all fronts, and its modifications over the years ensured its service throughout the world. Although it was in a medium tank category, the Panzer IV was the most advanced and most capable machine of the German Army before the introduction of the infamous Tiger in 1942. In the period following World War I, the German army had been prohibited by Treaty of Versailles from using tanks. After Adolf Hitler came to power in 1933, however, the army began to rebuild its tank forces, secretly at first and then openly from 1938 on. This led re-entry into tank manufacturing actually conferred a distinct advantage on the German army, which entered World War II without being hampered by masses of obsolescent tanks, as was the case of France, Great Britain, and the Soviet Union. Together with its contemporary, the Panzer III, the Panzer IV was a brainchild of Panzerkampfwagen's founding father, Field Marshal Heinz Guderian. It was intended to be a support tank for use against enemy fortifications with a large caliber howitzer. Its development was carried out under the name Panzerkampfwagen to hide its real purpose, as the Treaty of Versailles forbid Germany to possess its tanks. While first prototypes appeared in 1937, mass production began early with the Sd. The Panzer IV was modified and improved 9 times throughout its production, so it remained relevant in use throughout the war. Depending on the modification of the tank, the mass was from 18.4 to 25 tons. Despite this, the overall layout and appearance of the Panzer IV never changed. The engine was located in the rear of the vehicle, connected to the drive shaft, which itself was attached to the transmission in the front. The tank required a crew of 5 men, with the driver and radio operator, who double as a hull machine gunner, seated at the front left and front right, respectively. In the turret, the tank commander sat beneath his roof hatch, while the gunner was situated to the left of the gun bridge, and the loader to the right. One unique feature of the Panzer IV was a symmetrical hull to connect the turret rails to the transmission, allow the turret to be traversed faster. To accomplish this, the turret was offset 6.50 cm to the left, and the engine 15 cm to the right. The tank body consisted of 4 steel, round armor with a hardened surface. The tank had 3 compartments separated by bulkheads, a control, a fighting, and a power compartment. The thickness of armor was, depending on the modification, from 10 to 80 mm. Starting in 1943, 5 mm thick shells were also installed to help protect the sides and the back of the tower from anti-tank rifles and shells. The vehicle was equipped with an electrical turret traverse powered by a 2-cylinder Sd.Kfz PCW 600 petrol engine, providing quick target acquisition and supporting the traverse of the turret in an oblique position. In case of a breakdown of the electrical turret traverse, the gunner could operate a lever to switch over to traverse the turret manually. The Panzer IV was equipped with a V-shaped 12-cylinder 4-stroke carburetor engine for liquid cooling, using engine models from Maybach. Depending on the model of the engine, the power was from 250 to 300 horsepower. The maximum speed reached from 38 to 42 km per hour, operational range of 200 km. The Panzer IV mounted a 75mm gun and 2 machine guns. The first Panzer IV went into active service in 1939 with a short barrel gun and were extremely successful until confronted by Soviet T-34 tanks in late 1941. To cope with this threat, the Panzer IV was given thicker armor and refitted with a long-barreled, high-velocity gun that could better penetrate the T-34's armor. The improved Panzer IV could engage the T-34 on nearly equal terms and was superior to the US Sherman tank in many respects. The tanks were additionally equipped with 2 7.92mm MG-34 machine guns. They carried enough ammunition for 87 of 75mm shots, as well as 3,150 rounds for the machine guns. The Panzer IV was the only tank made by Germany throughout the course of the war, from 1939 to 1945. More than 8,000 Panzer IV were built, making it the most numerous of all German tanks. Its inexpensive, mass-produced chassis, like those of its 3 predecessors, was used as a platform for various types of anti-tank, assault, and self-propelled guns, and also functioned as an armored personnel carrier. The Panzer IV baptism of fire was during the invasion of Poland in 1939, although they were part of less than 10% of German armed forces. During the Battle of France, despite the increased production, the Panzer IV was still in minority. The tank saw limited deployments during both invasion of Yugoslavia and Greece during early 1941. They were deployed during the North African campaign among the Africa Corps. The short barrel version was outperformed by its predecessor, the Panzer III, but both of them were unable to deal with the Queen of Desert, Matilda II, until the long barrel version showed its nose by August 1942. The version's long gun was able to destroy every American and British tanks fielded during the campaign. In 1941, on the Eastern Front, the first shipment of the F2 arrived in spring 1942 and participated in the 1942 summer offensive, where it became the only tank able to defeat the T-34 and KV-1. On the Western Front, half of available German tanks were the Panzer IV prior to the invasion of Normandy. The boggish countryside permitted to German tanks and anti-tank guns inflicted heavy casualties on Allied tanks. However, the rugged terrain and boggish dense bush have caused many difficulties for it. Apart from having a successful career in the German army, the tank was massively exported to Axis forces and other interested countries. Hungary, Bulgaria, and Romania all employed the tank in their arsenal, where they were used in the joint effort against the Soviet Union. Finland ordered some tanks in 1944, but once the tanks arrived, the country switched sides and used the tanks against their distributor, Nazi Germany. Apart from the countries involved in the World War II, Spain, which was neutral, also received 20 Panzer IV tanks in 1943, although they requested 100 units. Soviet Union captured several Panzer IVs under designation T4 and were either used in combat or as training tank. The Panzer IV was the most widely exported tank in German service, with around 300 units. After the war, Syria procured Panzer IVs from France and Czechoslovakia, which saw combat in the 1967 Six-Day War. My video of Panzer IV tank ends here. Thank you for watching. If you find this video interesting, please give me your thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to support the channel. Goodbye and see you again in the next videos.